Hey guys, it's Bex. Welcome to another video. Today we are going to be talking about my favorite books of all time, which is probably long overdue. I feel like maybe that should have been an earlier video of mine, but nevertheless, we are doing it now. Better late than never. So I have 10 books that I narrowed down. It was very difficult, and because of that, I also have 7 books that I'm going to be just mentioning at the end, not even talking about what they're about or why I like them even, that are like runner-ups that didn't quite make my top 10 but that I still think I like enough, love enough to mention, because it just felt unfair to them to not. But I did narrow down my top 10, and amidst that top 10, only 2 of them are going to be like in order, which are my top 2 favorite books, and other than that they're not really in order. Without further ado, I'm going to start, again, not really in order, but I am going to leave my top favorites to the end, and then at the very end is going to be talking about my runner-ups. First up on this list, The Caraval Trilogy by Stephanie, I almost just said Meyer. Oh my gosh, not Stephanie Meyer. Stephanie Garber. This trilogy is a young adult fantasy romance series about these 2 sisters that basically get kind of involved in this traveling kind of magical competition. Anyone can enter, and if you win the competition, you get a wish. This was my introduction to Stephanie Garber. It immediately made me fall in love with her and her writing, and this world is just the most enchanting, fairy tale-esque kind of world. One of my absolute favorite fictional worlds. The world they live in this series is called the Magnificent North. I personally loved all of the characters. There wasn't any that I found to be like annoying or that I didn't like as much. I will say my favorite character in this series is probably Tella, who we mostly follow in the 2nd and 3rd book, Legendary and Finale. The romance in this series is so good, and because it's YA, it's just like pure, and it just fits the world so well. And just quick, easy reads, and I love them. I read them all like back to back, which sometimes I'm not very good at doing with series, but when I really, really love a series, that is one telltale sign that I do if I read it back to back, and I just knew I wanted to read more Stephanie Garber as soon as I picked these up. The next one I want to talk about is one that I don't own, but I really need to buy it because I loved it. Obviously, I'm not going to say that for every book because duh, but that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is one of those books that I read and I loved it, but I think I rated it like a 4.5 stars like immediately after finishing it, and just over time it has gone up. This book I think gets a lot of hype, but if you're not sure what it's about or haven't heard of it, it is a science fiction book, and you've also probably heard, if you've heard about this book, you've heard that the audiobook is really good, and I 100% agree with that. I would highly recommend the audiobook. Obviously, I've only read it once, and that was via listening to it, so I don't know how it compares, but I definitely think it's better listened to, and that is solely because there's one aspect of the story, which I can't say because it's a spoiler, but it is just, I think, better listened to. Basically, the premise is this guy wakes up not knowing where he is or really who he is. His memories have kind of disappeared, but he slowly comes to and realizes that he's actually on like a spaceship alone. All of his crewmates have died. Again, he doesn't know how or why or what happened, and slowly he kind of starts to regain his memories and realizes that he's on a mission to save Earth. This book has one of my favorite characters of all time, Rocky. I love Rocky. I think I cried at the end. There's a couple like plot twists kind of, and I absolutely literally cannot wait for the movie. I believe it's supposed to come out in 2026. I have really high hopes for it because if you have seen The Martian, that was a book that was written by Andy Weir that then became a movie, and it was really popular and I liked it, so I'm hoping that they will also do Project Hail Mary justice when it comes to the big screen. So yeah, absolutely cannot wait for that. I'm going to be in the theaters the second that it releases. Next up, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is a classic. If you haven't read it, you've probably at least seen the movies. We are following a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, and he goes on this adventure with these dwarves and a wizard to take back the dwarves' home, aka a mountain where a dragon has kind of taken over and lives there, and they don't want to mess with the dragon, so they they've kind of all been forced to leave their home, but they want it back, and Bilbo joins their cause as their burglar. And along the way, he finds this very powerful magic ring. You're kind of following that storyline a little bit too. And this book is pretty short. It is only 276 pages. It is very YA, I would say, and it's really funny. The way I read this was me and my husband kind of took turns reading it out loud to each other over the course of, don't laugh at me, it took us like over a year to read it. First of all, reading out loud takes way longer. Second of all, we would go like long stretches of time without reading it. I don't know why. We would pick it up like before bed, and sometimes we were so tired we would only read 5 pages. So we were just taking our sweet time and reading it, but I was like laughing so many times while reading this out loud to him, and I just loved it. Gave it 5 stars. I think everything on this list is 5 stars, by the way. Next up, we have the same author, and that is the first book in the Lord of the Rings book, which is The Fellowship of the Ring. I say that because this is considered part 1 of the Lord of the Rings like book, but it is normally like printed into 3 separate books. And by the way, this is just the dust jacket. I don't know where the book is right now. I think my husband is reading it. Same world, Middle Earth as The Hobbit, and this is after the events of The Hobbit. This follows a different Hobbit named Frodo Baggins. Him and his best friend Sam also find themselves going on an adventure regarding the same ring that I mentioned in The Hobbit that Bilbo finds. Frodo's adventure is much more sinister and kind of darker, and they're more at danger. This ring is not only powerful, but it's also very evil, and its master wants it back. I always mention this in any video that I talk about this series at all because I am a huge fan of the movies mostly, and the books now too, even though this is the only one of the Lord of the Rings that I've read. However, coming soon, I'm gonna read The Two Towers, which is the second book. But me and my husband love the movies, especially he's read all of the books, so much so that our cats are named Frodo and Sam. So yeah, we're big nerds and we love J.R.R. Tolkien and this world that he created. He is an absolute genius and the story is amazing. He literally wrote like his own language for this world. And yeah, this was one of my favorite books of 2024 and just one of my favorite books of all time. It wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was going to be, so if you are kind of scared to read it but would like to one day, I suggest it. Just kind of take your time. The chapters are kind of long. It's kind of slow at parts, but it is so worth it in my opinion. Next up, we have a series and I own it. However, I am loading it out right now, so I don't have it to show you guys, but that is the Red Rising trilogy. I'm only going to talk about the main 3 books, the first trilogy kind of this series, because those are the only ones I've read so far. This is by Pierce Brown, and this is also a sci-fi series. The premise of this story is we are following this young man named Darrow. I think he's 16 in the first book. He is a red, and their society is basically this caste system of colors. Red is on the bottom, and there's a bunch in between, and gold is on the top. So basically the golds are like the richest, the most powerful, and Darrow finds out that basically his whole life and every red's like thoughts of how the world is a lie. The golds basically have lied to everyone, and Darrow decides that he is going to try to get revenge and infiltrate the golds. And in the first book there's kind of this competition. When I picked the book up, I had heard it a lot referred to as kind of like the Hunger Games, but in space. I don't know if I mentioned they live on Mars, and I think that's because of the competition kind of aspect in the first book, so I guess that's kind of a good explanation of it. It is honestly pretty complicated and complex. There's a lot of characters. It is not an easy, light, fluffy read. It's kind of dark. You're dealing with revenge, brutality, war, but for me, the fact that it was kind of a harder read was so worth it, and I have loved all 3 of the first books that I've read in this series. Again, there's kind of the main trilogy, and then after that I think there's 4 more books, and I think 3 are maybe out so far. My favorites of this trilogy are pretty evenly the second one, Golden Sun, and the third one, Morning Star. Next we have another series, and that is the Renegades trilogy, which is also a sci-fi series. However, this is way less intense sci-fi. This is young adult. This was so much fun. I enjoyed my time reading this series so much. This series series follows our protagonist, Nova, and she is an anarchist, which is a kind of subgroup among the villains of this society. They have kind of been put into hiding because the renegades, which are basically the heroes and the good guys of the society, also kind of act like the police and the government. And Nova basically wants revenge on the renegades because of something that they did to her family when she was younger. So Nova tries to infiltrate the renegades by kind of pretending to be a renegade and join the renegades in order to kind of gather information and kind of be a spy on the inside, you know. There's a little romance in there that's just cute and sweet between Nova and one of the renegades, Adrian. Next we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I think this is my most recent book to add to my top 10. I read this at the end of 2024, so a couple of months ago, and loved it. The story follows a girl named Addie LaRue, and in 1714 France, she kind of makes a deal with this like dangerous stranger to help her out in a moment of desperation. But in turn, this dangerous stranger makes it so that she cannot be remembered and that she will also live forever. So everyone that she meets, they basically forget her if they haven't like seen her or talked to her. I think it's like within a couple minutes, to be honest. And it's so sad. It's such a sad premise because she'll never find love. She'll never find friendship. Everyone that she loved and knew before this bargain doesn't know who she is. Her family, her loved ones. It makes it hard for her to eat and find a place to live. If you can think about the logistics of that, you know, you can't have a job because they will be like, who the heck is this working here? And so you can't make money and all of that. It's very sad. And one day she meets someone who can remember her and everything changes for her. And the ending of this book is so sad, so heart-wrenching, but also so good. I absolutely loved it. I definitely cried very hard at the end of this book, and I think everyone should read this book, and this is one that I would honestly recommend to a lot of people, no matter kind of what genres you usually read or how old you are or your gender. I think it's just a universally great book and that a lot of people would love it. Next we have a very, very popular series, and that is the Empyrean series, aka Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Onyx Storm. These are the 3 books out so far in the series. I believe it is supposed to be a 5-book series by Rebecca Yarros. This is an adult fantasy romance. The premise of this story is there is this war college, and there are different quadrants in this war college. There is dragon riding, infantry, scribe, and I can't remember the 4th one. I forgot it because it's not really a big part of the story. But our main character, Violet Soaringale, her whole life she thinks she's going into the scribe quadrant, but last minute before she kind of has to choose which one to go into, her mom forces her to go into the dragon riding quadrant, and that proves very hard and dangerous for Violet. It's dangerous for anyone, but especially her because she's a very frail person. Something about her body and her bones and joints and stuff, they don't like work right, and her bones break really easily and stuff. And in this dragon riding quadrant, you have to do a lot of physical things, one being learn how to ride a dragon. So yeah, this story, we have dragons, we have evil creatures, war, romance, and I've just loved every single book. I have rated 2 out of 3 5 stars. I rated Onyx Storm 4.5. It wasn't my favorite of the series, but I still really liked it. Highly recommend this series if you like fantasy, if you like romance, if you like dragons. Love, love, love. Now we are officially to our top 2 favorite books series. They are both series, so I'm just gonna say series. But my number 2 favorite book / series of all time is none other than Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This series consists of 3 books. The reason I have 4 books here is because I have 2 copies of A Curse for True Love. And if this author's name sounds familiar to you, I was talking about her other series, Caraval, earlier in this video, which is also in my top 10. And if you can see, I've even tabbed 2 of the 3 books, the 2nd and 3rd one, The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love, which I rarely ever tab any book, so that means I loved it. And I also just pretty much read the series back to back, except for the last book. I had to wait a little bit until it came out. And even though I already have 2 copies of A Curse for True Love, I'm also also so excited to be getting another set of this series in like July. I think it comes out. It's like a special box set of all 3 books, but I'm so excited for that. So this takes place in the same world as Caraval, the Magnificent North, and we are following Evangeline Fox, and kind of the premise of this series is that at the beginning of the first book, Evangeline finds out that her true love is marrying her stepsister, and she is very like heartbroken and confused, and because it's so out of the blue, she is convinced that it is because he has been cursed and it's not of his own doing. So to help break the curse, basically, she goes to the only person she can think of, and that is Jax, the Prince of Hearts, who is a fate. And basically fates in this story are like magical, immortal beings. It's kind of complicated to explain like the backstory of them, but that's kind of the gist of it. And he does decide to help her, but he requires 3 kisses from her from 3 other people, random people who she doesn't know who they are at the moment, and he kind of has his own agenda in helping her. The thing I mostly love about these books and just this whole world by Stephanie Garber is the world and her writing. It is so magical and like a fairy tale, and I think I said the same word about Caraval, very like enchanting. There's like little baby mini dragons, there's like these potions that you can drink for luck and courage, and if you drink them they will make you lucky, give you courage, stuff like that. Lots of little magical things about this world. It is a fantasy, same as Caraval, and there's also romance in this series, and this is like I think the perfect like ultimate comfort read for me. The stakes aren't that high, and just the way she writes is so beautiful. Like I just randomly went to one of my tabs, and I was trying to find one that I tabbed for like the writing, and I think this is one, and this is just an example. Jax took a bite of his apple, drawing her attention to the foot of the bed where he stood looking like eternal heartbreak. His fair skin faintly glowed, his eyes shone like stolen stars, his hair was spun gold, and the cruel planes of his face filled her with a longing so deep it felt like an ache. I want to reread the series so bad, and I also rarely reread series, and by rarely I mean I've only ever reread one, and I didn't even reread the whole series. But really want to reread this, one because I never got a chance to tab the first book in the series, and I really want to, and I just, yeah, seriously obsessed with this series. I wish I could read it again for the first time so bad. And last but not least, my favorite book / series of all time is Harry Potter. This is a special edition of the first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm obsessed with this edition. It's so cool. It's like this interactive, fully illustrated edition. So cool. But I just grabbed the first one. Unlike most of the other ones I was grabbing the whole series because this is a very long series, and a lot of the books in it are really large. There's 7 books in the series. This is the series that I was just saying that I've reread, and I've reread only the first 5 books because I started reading the series when I was in high school, and I only got like halfway through the 5th book and then just for some reason stopped, and then I re-picked them up a couple years ago and read them all the way through. This is just so nostalgic because I kind of grew up with it. Like, even though I didn't read the books, most of them, until high school, I watched the movies kind of all growing up. I think the first one came out in, was it late 90s? I should really know that. I think so, which is like kind of when I was born. So pretty much grew up with these books, and I think the story is just so good. This, if you don't know, we are following a young boy. He's 11 years old in the first book. His name is Harry Potter. He's living with his mean old aunt and uncle and cousin in London because his parents died when he was a tiny baby. He was told that they died in a car accident, and one day he gets a letter in the mail saying that he's been accepted into Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and Harry finds out he is a wizard, and he goes to school at Hogwarts, and you're basically just following him every year and his kind of adventures at Hogwarts. And there's this evil wizard named Voldemort who basically wants to take over the world with his evilness, and Harry is kind of the key to saving everyone, and it is just so good. This is YA, middle grade to YA. I would say the first maybe 3 books is more middle grade, and then it does start getting kind of darker and heavier in the topics, and the evil is kind of greater looming in the story in the later books. Don't let that deter you just because because it's middle grade to YA. I still think everyone would enjoy this. I just seriously love it so much, and I'm actually thinking of rereading this again this year. It's been a couple years now since I finished rereading it / reading it for the first time fully, so it's time for a reread, I think, but it's just my favorite. Those are my top 10 favorite books of all time, and now again, like I said, I just want to quickly talk about the 7 that are like my runner-ups. I would still consider them among my favorite books, but just not top 10. In no particular order, we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, The Whole Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafia. My newest addition to this list, The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen, and then I have 2 that I don't own, Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. I hope you guys enjoyed. I just thought I would finally get on here and talk about my favorite books because I haven't done that, like I said, and if you also love these books, some of these books, then I highly recommend sticking around, subscribing, and hanging out with me while I do my favorite thing, which is to read. Let me know what your favorite book of all time is. I hope you guys liked this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!